Okay, first grade, today we're going to use those color wheel colors that we've been learning about in color wheel order, and we're going to learn how to make some of the colors. So we learned that yellow, blue, and red are called the primary colors. And we've also learned that when you mix two primary colors together, we get the secondary colors, green, orange, and purple. But you'll notice here on my paint palette, I only have the primary colors. That means today we're going to learn how to make the secondaries. We're going to mix paint to make the secondary colors. Today we're going to be working on a landscape. Remember, a landscape is a picture of the outdoors. And we're going to paint some fall trees using all of the primary and secondary colors. The paint that we're using today is called tempera. So when we use tempera, I want you to rinse your brush. First, you're going to watch me. So I'm going to rinse my brush. I'm going to squeeze my brush on the inside of my bucket, and then I'm going to dry it on the paper towel. Now you'll notice there's a little bit of paint on my brush, so that means I want to rinse it again. I want to make sure that I have a very clean brush to work with. So I'm going to rinse my brush, squeeze the extra water out, and dry it again. And this time my brush is nice and clean. So with tempera paint, we want a dry brush, not like watercolor, which we just used. Watercolor, you want a wet brush. We're going to start with the color wheel order that we were singing about: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. So red is going to be our first color. When we get paint on our paintbrush, I want to just barely dip it into the paint. Remember, your brush is not a scoop or a spoon, so we don't want to scoop the paint out. We just want to barely dip it into the paint. I'm going to make 3 primary color trees and 3 secondary color trees. So 3 plus 3 equals 6. That means I need to fit 6 trees on my paper. Remember, trees are nature. Trees grow outside, so we don't want it to look perfect. We want it to be uneven and look very natural. When you're painting with tempera, I'm going to start over here on the left side, and I'm going to paint my first tree, my red tree. And notice that I'm just dabbing the paint onto the paper. I want it to look like I'm painting leaves, kind of in the shape of a tree, but I can leave some white showing through, because if you look at the trees outside, you can see right through the trees, through the leaves. So you can make it look more natural that way. So I'm going to pause the video so you can go ahead and paint your first red tree. When you're finished, put your brush in the bucket, and that shows me that you're ready for the next step. Now that you're done with the red tree, we're going to rinse our brush. We're going to squeeze it to get the extra paint out and dry it on the paper towel. Again, you want to make sure all of the paint is out of your brush before you're ready to paint the next color. So when we sing our song, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, the next primary color that we're going to paint is yellow. Now when we sing our song, red, orange, yellow, that means we need to leave some room for the orange tree that we're going to paint later. So I'm going to get a little paint on my brush, and I'm going to paint my yellow tree, leaving some room in the middle for the orange. Again, you want to kind of dab it on. Think about leaves and nature and how it doesn't have to look perfect. And maybe this tree is going to be a tall, skinny tree instead of a round tree. So go ahead and paint your yellow tree this time. And again, when you're finished, put your brush in the bucket. I'll pause it while you paint your yellow tree. Now that you're done with your yellow tree, we're going to rinse our brush. We're going to squeeze it to get the extra water out. And again, because it's tempera, we're going to dry our brush by painting back and forth. Remember, we want to take care of our brushes. No bad hair day. So I'm keeping my brush nice and neat. I'm not touching the bristles. I'm taking very good care of my brush. Our next primary color that we're going to paint, red, orange, yellow, green, blue. Our next tree is going to be blue. So I'm going to get a little paint on my brush, And I'm going to paint a blue tree, making it look like nature, keeping it natural and not trying to make it perfect. So go ahead and paint your blue tree, dabbing on the paint, keeping it nice and neat. Remember, good craftsmanship means neatness. When you're finished, drop your brush in the bucket. The next thing that we're going to do is have some fun with our color mixing. So if we sing our song, red, orange, we know that orange comes next. How do we know what two colors we need to make orange? Well, we can look at the color wheel. If we look at the color wheel on the board, orange is in the middle, red is on one side, yellow is on the other. So that tells me I need yellow and red to make orange. Now, when you're mixing colors, I'll tell you a little trick. The best thing to do is start with your lightest color first. So I'm going to rinse my brush. I'm going to squeeze the extra water out. I'm going to dry my brush on the paper towel. And making orange, I need yellow and red. So I'm going to start with my lightest color first. I want you to watch me first. Try not to do this with me. First, watch the video, and then one person will mix the paint at the table. So I put a little bit of yellow in the middle between the yellow and red. When you're using red, red is a really strong color, so you really only need a little bit of red to make your orange. Then you're going to stir them together. And sometimes you have to be a little bit of a scientist, and you have to experiment a little with your colors. So sometimes you're lucky and you mix your colors together and it's the exact orange that you and your team wanted. Sometimes you mix it together and you might say, oh, it's a little yellow, so we add a little bit more red. Or you might look at your orange and say, ooh, we used too much red, so you can put some more yellow into it. Now remember, don't use all the yellow because we need it to make another secondary color that has yellow in it, and that is green. So once you have mixed your orange and your team likes that orange and you're ready to use it, then you're going to paint an orange tree. Your orange tree goes between the red and the yellow because red and yellow make orange. So we're kind of telling a story with our fall landscape today. Dot your trees on, don't make them perfect, and when you're finished, drop your brush in the bucket. I'll pause the video while you mix your orange, and then everyone will paint an orange tree. Now that we're done making orange, the next color that we're gonna make, sing our song, red, orange, yellow, green. So our next color that we're gonna make is green. If we're not sure how to make green, we can look at the color wheel and we see that yellow is on one side and blue is on the other. So I know if I wanna make green, I have to mix yellow and blue together. So I'm gonna rinse my brush. I'm going to squeeze it on the inside of my bucket. And again, please watch the video first before you mix your green. So I'm gonna dry it on the paper towel so I have a nice clean dry brush for tempera. I'm gonna get a little bit of yellow, and blue is a very strong color, kind of like red. So I just wanna take a little bit of blue and then I'm gonna mix those together. Remember, you don't wanna use all the blue because we need it to make another secondary color, and that is purple. So again, we're kind of like scientists. We're doing an experiment. We're gonna see what we need to make green. If I like the green right away and my team likes the green right away, I'm ready to paint. If I look at it and say, it probably has too much blue in it, I can add more yellow. Or if I look at it and say, I think it has too much yellow, I can add some more blue. So you're gonna have to kind of play around with your green until you get a green that your team agrees you really like. I'm gonna stir it all together, and once I'm ready, then my team and I can paint our green tree. Green goes in between the yellow and the blue because yellow and blue make green. And again, I'm gonna dot it on. I'm gonna make it look like a natural, realistic tree. I can make it as tall or as short as I want to. And notice that my trees are all bumping in together, and that's okay. They can overlap a little bit too. When I'm finished with my green tree, I'm gonna drop my brush in the bucket so I know I'm ready for the next step. I'll pause the video while you make green and paint your green tree. Now we're ready for our last secondary color, and that is purple. So we're going to rinse our brush and make sure we're taking turns that different people get to try mixing colors today. I'm going to rinse my brush. I'm going to squeeze the extra water out and dry it on my paper towel. If it's still not clean, I wash it again, squeeze it, and dry it. Remember, Tempera, we want a dry, clean brush. So I go back and forth taking care of my paintbrush. Now I will tell you, purple is probably the hardest color to make out of all of the secondary colors. So I saved the hardest for last because now you've had some practice mixing. To make purple, we want to use red and blue. We can look at our color wheel and see red is on the one side of purple and blue is on the other. I think the best way to make purple is to start with blue. So I usually start with blue when I'm making purple. I'm gonna get some blue, and again, we're watching first, and then it'll be your turn. And then I'm gonna get a little bit of red. And just like before, we're kind of scientists. We're experimenting with color and seeing what do we need. And I'm gonna talk to my team and say, team, what do you think? Do you think this looks like a purple? What do you think I need? Do you think I need more blue? Do you think I need more red? If it's too blue, grab some more red. If it's too red, grab some more blue. And keep mixing until your team agrees that you have a color that you really like. Sometimes if you put too much red in, it will kind of look more like a brown. But that's okay because we're just learning colors today. We're learning how to mix the secondary colors, and it's our first time doing this. So just do the best that you can. Once your team has a purple that you really like, then you're ready to paint. You're gonna paint your last secondary color, your last tree in your fall landscape. And remember, we're dotting them on. Now, if you realize, I have a lot of room left over on my paper. Some of you might have room at the end of your paper where it's blank and it doesn't have a tree. That's okay, because next week we're gonna add a lot of details to this project. We're gonna add some tree trunks and some branches. We'll add a horizon line. We'll add sky and ground and lots of details in there. We're gonna have a lot of fun adding details with oil pastels. So if you think, oh, my trees didn't go all the way to both edges, it's okay. We'll have a lot of room to add more details that way. So when you are ready, you're going to mix your purple and then paint your purple tree. When we're all finished, then I will give you some directions for cleanup. Please make sure that you have your first name, last name, and your class code at the bottom of your paper before you turn it in. You can use Sharpie to label your paper. All right, finish purple.